My name is Randy Rubenstein, and welcome to the Mastermind Parenting Podcast. At Mastermind Parenting, we're on a mission to support strong-willed kids and the families that love them. Hi, everyone. I have another great episode with psychologist and masterminder, Dr. Shawn Hondorp, which is a conversation that she actually put out on her podcast between the two of us. And I thought I would share it here because people are loving it. And so I wanted all of you to have a chance to hear it. Her podcast is called The Innovative Therapist. And this is a little bit about what she says about the conversation that you're about to hear. She says, in this episode of The Innovative Therapist, Randy Rubenstein returns to dive deeper into the concept of pack leadership while exploring how creativity and play can transform our lives. We discuss the importance of leaning into your zone of genius. We break that down, fostering meaningful connections through creativity, and how play has reshaped my approach to parenting and work. So when she said, I just have to tell you all a little bit of the backstory. When she said she wanted to record an episode where we talk about play, I was like, oh, brother. I hate all this parenting pressure to play with your kids. A good parent constantly plays with their kids when I didn't do a whole lot of that. But then she had me listen to a podcast with Tina Bryson. She's a great lady, and she is in the parenting space. She's written a book with Dr. Dan Siegel, and I really like her. I agree with her philosophies. And so she said, well, just listen to this, because Tina just wrote her most recent book is all about play. And after listening to the podcast with Tina, she basically was like, it's not about playing per se. It's about having a playful attitude. And I was like, oh, well, I did that. And then I didn't feel so guilty for not playing Barbies or Polly Pockets with my kids. So then I was more open to having this conversation. And I really like the way that Shawn and I talk about creativity and play and how it's probably different than many of you are thinking about those concepts. So I think you're really going to love this episode. So enjoy.
All right, welcome back to the Innovative Therapist podcast for part 2 of who knows how many with Randy Rubenstein. So if you didn't already get it or listen, last week we talked about this concept of pack leadership that has really changed my life. And I think there's just so many cool ways we can apply this concept in as our role as parents, as leaders in our family, and with our role in many other areas of our life. So we tried to unpack it and define what it was last time. So I do recommend going back and listening to that episode first. This episode should stand alone as well. But today I want to dive even further into pack leadership, creativity, and play. Creativity especially has come into, which is like interlinked with play, into my orbit, and just felt really important to explore for me for, I would say, at least a year. Like I've been kind of obsessed with it. And so I want to talk about that and touch on today, how we can continue to be stronger pack leaders at home, but also how we can bring our unique, the concept of zone of genius. You and I recently collaborated on a group where we explored creativity via reading the book Big Magic, and also zone of genius, which is a concept from the book The Big Leap. So I think there's a lot of promise and exciting things as we open up and explore these topics within ourselves that we can bring to our families, but that we can also bring to our work, whether that's as an entrepreneur or just to our work at another job. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome back to the podcast, Randy.
Thank you. And I want to start by saying, if you haven't listened to the last podcast that we did together, we were like, I said, I teach this thing all the time, but it's not easy to explain. It's not even, and people I sent your most recent newsletter to Michaeline, where you really kind of broke down what we talked about in that podcast. And this is what, this is what we discussed. This is what pack leadership means. And she responded and said, I love the way pack leadership is described here. So I'm going to take that as I think we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish in the last episode. Michaeline is the author of Hunt, Gather, Parent, and she's been on my podcast a lot. And
Yeah, it's a big compliment.
Michaeline, she's a journalist and she writes books. And so, yeah, she loved the way that you described pack leadership and wrote about it. So,
Aw,
yay.
that makes
Yay.
me really happy. Yeah.
The Michaeline seal of approval. Um, but you know what I was thinking? I think even me calling leadership, really, it's just leadership that we're teaching.
Hmm.
Um, but instead of calling it leadership and it being like, oh, I'm going to a leadership conference for my job, I'm going to read a book on leadership. Like that sounds so ad- adulty and like the super boring part of adulting, you know?
Hmm.
Not like
Yeah.
the part of adulting that like you're old enough to drink and, you're in charge of yourself. But
Yeah.
like, yeah, like the lame side of adulting. And so I think even calling it pack leadership is playful. I think I do
Yeah.
it because it feels more fun to me. It feels more playful. It's like, does this all need to be as serious as a heart attack? Or like, do we have little kids that sometimes or a lot of the time just won't do the
Hmm.
things that we want them to do, just won't get all their, I mean, I'm thinking about your recent like snow gear out of the car, that won't pick up those wrappers and bring them in, and it's driving you crazy and it's a little deal, but it's completely annoying you and triggering all the disrespect old
Yeah.
parts, and so it's like,
Yeah.
so when we have little kids that are just being little kids, but it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, okay, how do I show up in pack leadership in this moment? And like, even calling it pack leadership is they're going to be more responsive when I'm more playful. But then, and I know this segues into what we want to talk about, but the pressure to be the mom who plays Barbies all the time and builds Lego shit, is like also triggering the perfectionistic part and the I don't want to. And
Yeah.
this is boring me to tears part. And so, right. And so I
Yeah.
think that I'm glad that like we can even kind of start like, how do I bring more pack leadership is really a reminder for this is a silly term. And even just like calling it this in my own head sort of brings some levity to this
Hmm.
situation. And that's really going to be a big part of the solution of this situation, a kid that just won't.
Yes. Right. Yeah. You had playfulness. Maybe you knew, but maybe you didn't even realize you were bringing the playfulness to it. And
No, I didn't. I didn't.
yeah.
I didn't realize it. And the podcast that you sent me, and I was listening to it, I was like, oh, I was super playful. All that, like I've always said to my moms, as like, no, I didn't want to sit and play Polly Pockets, and I didn't. But
Yep.
most of the time when they were like, will you play? No, I don't want to. And you don't have to do that either.
Hmm.
But what I realize is no, I was playful all the time. Right. And no, I didn't want to sit and play figurines. But I did do a lot of the things that she talked about in that podcast, which is like narrate their experience or sit and watch them playing figurines and like be really curious about the figurines. Like, really, I just enjoyed them, but
Yeah.
I didn't have to. Like, I was saying, oh, I didn't play with my kids. I think I played with them all the time by just being playful.
Right. Right. And just being a fly on the wall on their lives, which you still do now, which you get the privilege to do now. But what happened, and so to bring the listeners in, this really just this weekend, actually just yesterday, we're recording this on a Monday. I was in the grocery store and I was listening to another podcast. Well, actually, I was listening to a coaching call replay, and that ended, and this podcast randomly came on. I never listened to this podcast, but it was, you know how they give the little clips at the beginning. And the snippet was something, it was about Dr. Tina Bryson. I have to look down because I'm still, her work's new to me. And she was talking about her new book, The Way of Play, which I haven't read yet, but now I'm interested. And basically saying, like, get down, immerse yourself in your kids' play. And I got like pissed. I'm like, no, you know, like Randy told me I didn't have to. And
He gave me.
I have like the people pleaser and the like perfectionist mom that was like, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm listening to my body and I don't want to. And I was like, don't tell me what to do. But I listened through enough to, I was intrigued enough. It didn't sound judgy, but it still activated my defensive parts. And then I ended up listening to this podcast and like getting really teary because I was like, wait, there might be a way that actually does interest me where I could play with, you know, my daughter and Barbie's is the more recent, just this weekend. Oh, it's sort of like, yeah, I believe she was sort of saying to her grandma, like, my mom doesn't, I don't know, I wasn't there, but like my mom doesn't want to play this with me, which is true. And I was just like, okay, well, that's all right. Like I'm allowed to be the mom that doesn't. But this gave me some hope of like, I actually would love to play with her in a way that allows me to deeply connect with her, even though she's, you know, as you know, she's pretty like willing to talk about her feelings, but not all kids are. And sometimes she just hits a wall. She's like, I'm done talking about this, you know, like whether it's friend drama at school or things like that. So I had this like, so I shared it with you obviously and just filling the listeners in, and I was like, this gave me so much hope, but also I was sad because I was like, oh, because I had shut myself off to that. But before I was just doing it in a way that wasn't fulfilling at all, right? I was just like, like, here's Barbie says this, and I got bored so quick, and they can feel that as we've talked
They
about.
can.
So.
You can. They. I mean, even Avery said to me recently, who's my 23-year-old daughter, like she was like, yeah, I loved watching movies with you. And I've always loved watching shows or movies with you, but the ones that you're actually enjoying. She
Mm-hmm.
said, like, she could tell when I was just sort of like going through the motions, even like watching a show together, but it was like something that I didn't really want to watch. Probably like when I watch anime with my son, Corey. And it's like, but then he's like, Mom, I'm telling you, it's deep. You're gonna get into it. It's emotional.
Yeah.
And then we watched it one night. Scott was out of town and Corey was like staying in on a Friday night or something. And we had a whole like situation going on in my bed. And we watched this anime movie and it was really good. And he was like
Mhm.
explaining certain things. He's like, I told you, right? I was like, this is a little racy. Do little kids watch this? He's like, no, I'm telling you, it's like deep. It's really
Yeah.
it's like sensitive. Anyway, but they can tell when we're faking it.
Yep.
So like the mom who she's like, oh, sure, let's play Moana again. Like, don't waste your time because your kid,
Mm-hmm.
like your kid is gonna like they're on to you. Nobody's that good of an actor and they feel your energy. So if you
Yeah.
don't want to play Moana, don't freaking play Moana,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Don't do that. And then yet there might be, and this podcast only gave me a couple of ideas of how I've already used a couple of the ideas I learned, heard on the podcast literally this morning, and it went very well. Um, I literally just, and we'll link the podcast for anyone who wants to listen to it. There's, you know, I think she's been promoting her new book, so she's on other podcasts as well. But that's just one. It's like we can actually find ways to do this in a way that's enjoyable potentially, and then it allows us as adults to reconnect with play in a way. And like we were saying last time, like deep down, all of us want this deeper connection with our kids or the people in our life that really matter. Like going back to what we talked about last time with like Mel Robbins, I believe just because I had a period of like workaholism, like you were saying like, oh, she could have done like Zoom or these different innovative ways to be at home or FaceTime, but I think if she knew she was workaholism is a way to
Yeah.
numb, right? And it's like
Yeah.
when I was doing workaholism, it was because
I've
this is
been
the
in those
only
phases
way.
too. Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Same.
And even yesterday, I was listening to this podcast, and I'm just getting obsessed with these concepts, and I'm like prepping for this meeting, which could have looked like workaholism. My kids were not around, but really, it's because I'm obsessed with learning how to connect with them. Like, so I think our work, not always, but when we follow our interests, like it just shows us what we actually deeply want, and like I think my work's been that way for a long time. Like, I'm obsessed with figuring out how to heal myself so that I can better have what I want in my life, which ultimately comes down to like better relationships, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And makes you better at your work.
yeah, bonus, right?
Right.
Win-win.
I mean, I
Right.
think I was just listening to, look, you become obsessed with learning, right? And
Hmm.
so I was listening to, 10% Happier podcast. Have you ever listened to that one?
A little, yeah. Dan Harris, I've heard of it.
He's
I've probably
good.
listened
He's
to one or
good.
two. Yep.
And he just had Guy Raz on, who is the guy who did his podcast is How I Built This, which is all about, it's a great, great podcast for anyone who is an entrepreneur or starting your own business or runs your own business. And it's just stories of people who've done it. And if anyone's never listened to How I Built This and you're, running your own business or thinking about running your own business, start with the very early episode, and you'll have to scroll back with the Sarah Blakely episode. She's the founder of Spanx, and it's a great, great episode.
Yeah.
So, anyway, How I Built This is an example of learning through play,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Because Guy Raz teaches all these all these lessons, but it's all through someone's story.
Hmm.
So when we're listening to these, it's like, oh, I'm going to listen to some business. Like it doesn't feel like you're listening to a business podcast because you're listening to a story and it's fascinating. And there's a whole, how many times they failed and all the different things. And he's very engaging. He worked for NPR for a long time, kind of like Michaeline, right? They
Yeah.
know how to like get the interview. And so they know how to engage you. And it's a creative way to engage you and to learn through play
Hmm.
as an adult. And I think that, you know, something that they were both talking about, they were talking about work-life balance. And Guy said, it's when you love what you do so much, there is a crossover between work and home. He goes, so like my family just went, we just took the kids and we went on this, 2-week trip to Italy or whatever. He's like, and I wrote a newsletter while I was there. Um, all of a sudden I come up with an idea and I, send an email to my team, share that idea. He
Yep.
goes, but also like for years, like when I was traveling to this city or that city, presenting at a conference, a lot of times my family would come with me and then we'd turn it into a weekend.
Hmm.
He goes, so there's a lot of crossover. I don't really work in a traditional way. There is a lot of crossover between work and home.
Yep.
And my family is incorporated into what I do. And Dan Harris, who runs the podcast, was saying, like, yeah, me too. So I
Yeah.
think it's not as clear as like for any of us who are obsessed and watching season 2 of Severance, which is on Apple Podcast, which is it's such a smart, incredible. I'm obsessed with it. We're obsessed with it. It's all about Ben Stiller's like the producer on it. It's all about work life balance
Hmm.
and your personal life and your work life. And can you sever one from the other? And I think that's really the main metaphor of the show. And
Yeah.
um, and I think if you are doing this kind of work, like what we're doing, and what a lot of probably your listeners are doing, I don't think it is black and white. I don't think it is so clear.
Right. Well, and I think that's why you're the one who introduced Zone of Genius to me, however many years ago. And that concept has been so pivotal to me because the more you lean into your zone of genius, like it doesn't usually feel like work at all. It feels like play, it feels like joy, it feels life-giving to you, and it makes you better at your work. Like, and it also makes you better at for me as a mom, I think. Because and that's why like on Fridays Home with Will, I will do, an hour podcast, our last one we recorded, because it's very energizing to me. And so and I have another episode we can link to about where we kind of break down zones of excellence and genius, but I mean, first of all, it's really normalized to just hate your work or at least
Hmm.
just tolerate it, right? And sometimes
Hmm.
that's zone of competence or excellence where it's like it's fine or you like it well enough or you feel accomplished after you do it. But zone of genius is a whole nother thing. And that is, I think, really rare for people to be operating in their zone of genius for their work. I think it happens whether you're an entrepreneur or not. When you're an entrepreneur, you have more freedom, but we've all been conditioned to like just grind it out and do, I was
It's
just,
like school. It's like nobody, it's like, sorry, you got to go to school. And it's
yep,
like, wait a minute. Kids human beings love learning.
yes.
Why do so many of us get through school? And I mean, I rarely hear anyone say, oh my gosh, I learned so much in school. I loved school. Like it was like,
I loved school, but I didn't learn like I loved school because I was obsessed with like I mean, I was obsessed with like finding my schedule. I actually did have some good classes in undergrad and grad school because I worked really hard to find the best professors who were actually engaging through story. So that's part of it. But yeah, I mean, I didn't read on like books for fun during
right,
school,
just
right? Like it zapped my love of learning to a pretty big extent. And it had me, yeah, I was always exploring these side topics like during grad school. So I was like, none of this is helping me personally. So I'm going to keep like,
but
I'm
even
going
if
to,
you think about like as a kid, elementary school, like
yeah.
I loved certain grades in elementary school. And
Mm-hmm.
but it was always about who my teacher was. And I
Yeah.
loved, like, I remember learning to read, and I remember loving learning to read. I remember like it was like the whole world opened up for me. And
Mm-hmm.
and so, and it's like, and then in third and fourth grade I had kind of shitty teachers, um and I didn't love learning that much at all. I don't remember loving and then in fifth grade I had this just fantastic superstar teacher, and she loved me, and I loved learning again, right?
Yeah.
But by the time I got to junior high, at the time it was called junior high, like junior high and high school, there's very few teachers that were truly engaging. It was mostly just getting through it, and doing what you had to do to get through it. And I mean, I
Yeah.
was always a good student, like of course I was gonna, but I wasn't like for me to be an adult and for the last 25 years to be obsessed with learning new things. I love learning. Like
Yep.
I started off school loving it, and then it was gone. I just was going through the motions and getting the thing done.
Right. Well, yeah. And it's funny because I'm like, oh, right, elementary. Like all those early years feel like so long ago, and they were in some ways, but I did not love those years. Mostly because I had a lot of anxiety, a lot of social anxiety. Like that it just ruined all of it for me. But also because school isn't designed to like foster that love of learning. So I loved college and grad school aspects of it because I had freedom and autonomy to choose and curate some of the things I was actually interested
Mhm.
in. But there was so much of it that throughout the whole thing, focus on grades, like zaps I mean, I was obsessed with just getting good grades, you know?
Right. Right.
And
But it was a goal and it probably motivated you. And
yeah,
there was something in that for you, right? Like,
yeah. But like, I think both of us, I've watched you and really, I mean, I use Voxer for some of my communities now, like watched you, the way that you've designed your business and operating in your zone of genius and watching that. And it's been like a model for like what's possible, right? Like I know that you show up on Voxer with us, the moms and or parents in your community because you want to. And
right,
we can feel that.
right.
And that's a gift to us. And yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the things that
Yeah,
I
it
did.
doesn't feel like a job. It's not, it's like the kind of thing that like I heard an actor saying this recently. Um, like, oh, does everybody do all these directors know that we would actually do this for free? You know, like they're like it's ridiculous that I get paid to play and to do the thing I love. And that's how I feel. Like when I show up with you guys on Voxer or on my coaching calls, like hey, guess what? You know, really, really, if you guys would show up and meet me here, like the truth is, I would do this for free. I love it so much. I'm not doing it for free because
Yeah.
I know that I've had to be coached on all that. And I would used to do way too many things for free and my time is valuable and it just builds resentment. So we're not doing that. But I love it that much that I
Yeah.
would do it for free. And that does feel like play. That does feel like I'm in my zone of genius a lot of the time. And I think it's why play with your kids. You should, you want to be the kind of parent that plays with your kids, and why it's so loaded and why it can conjure up so much guilt in us is because we lost our own sense of play so long ago, and we were just we lived by the have tos.
Mhm.
And so now to have this extra pressure of, oh, great. So I'm checking off all of these good parent boxes, I'm feeding them the good stuff. Like I buy some organic things, getting them the rest, they get the rest that they need. We're doing all the basic care, their school, their education, their clothing, their blah, 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 blah. And now on top of it, I have to fucking play with them too. Are you
Right.
kidding me? Like when,
Right.
like it's just more pressure. And it's because, and I think why it feels like so much pressure is because there's this very big backstory to all that
Yeah.
guilt, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I think what I've opened up to increasingly over the past like year plus is just there's so much opportunity. And even like listening to that podcast yesterday, I was like, oh my gosh, like I can prioritize connecting to my kids in the way that feels good to both of us. And there's so much hope in that. Like even yesterday, I was thinking about like the way we do bedtime, and Claire has been reading the Babysitters Club graphic novel books on Kindle, and I was like, but we switch off bedtime, so I would like read, and then I don't do bedtime reading with her till 2 nights, and I'm like, why she stays up a little later? Like I can prioritize reading with her every night, because that sounds really fun to me. Like I actually
Hmm.
really want to, right? And then we can keep going with the same story instead of like now dad's reading it. And it's so simple, but
Hmm.
like you've been talking recently on your podcast about learning through story and connecting through story, whether that's like a TV show or a book. And that's an exciting avenue. I guess I just feel like I'm imagining I'm not the only one where you just don't even think about it. You just go through
Right.
the shoulds and you're like, well, I guess I have to do whatever book my kid wants to do,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
what not listening to your body. And for my son, it's he and I think I told you a couple months ago, he and I started telling what we call Henry stories. And it came out of just this improvisation. I think it was this like I'm leaning more into play. Henry stories are stories essentially about him, but we
Hmm.
name him Henry, right? And like last night, I just came up with this story about um, Henry being 9 years old and getting a bunny, and like all the things that like Henry had to do before he could get a bunny, like show he's responsible, like all these things that I want, right? Like cleaning up their stuff and like showing that they'd be ready to take care of a pet. So I'm infusing these like lessons, and he was like obsessed with it. And then I was actually like being kind of funny. I don't consider I'm like, who am I? And I think I,
You're so funny. You have great comedic timing, and I love that you're not even aware of it. I'm like,
well, I appreciate that. But it's also like, I like many of the therapists in these meetups I've been doing, they're like, I'm not creative. I just came here because I want to network. And like, they're like, I don't know what you're talking about creativity. I'm like, that's been me. I don't think I could make up a story about a bunny named Mr. Fluffernutter. I think that's pretty funny. Like,
mm-hmm.
I was like, where'd that come from? Because I think I'm opening up these areas of my brain that have been closed off for so long. And it's been like
And
really fun.
you're honoring your own zone of genius. Like you're kind of, you're a teacher. And it's like, not many of us have that sort of instinct where we want to teach them all the things.
Mhm.
We're like, I want them to know these things. I want them to learn them earlier than I did. And I
Yeah.
don't want to just teach it to them. I want to teach it to other people. Like when we learn something, you're kind of a born teacher in whatever capacity you're teaching. If like you learn something or you hear something and then you like really want to have a deep conversation with someone else about it, you want to teach it to them. You want to unpack it with someone else. You want to share this new wisdom with someone else.
Hmm.
Um, that is just a sign that part of your zone of genius is that you're a teacher
Right.
and you want to teach these concepts. And so, we quite often it's like we want to teach our kids these concepts, but because we were conditioned in traditional school, most of us, and it was a slog and it wasn't engaging and it was a lot of worksheets and it was Bueller, and it didn't involve a lot of play. We our creativity and our playfulness and our, sort of brainstorming ways to engage another person, we don't equate it as going with teaching these lessons. So that's part of the reason why Avery and I started me and my daughter started writing these children's books. And they're in development right now. But that's really, I didn't really think it out that much, but that's really my idea is if I'm covering all these concepts in these children's books. We are covering all these concepts about empathy, about how to have a productive conversation, about a little kid that's living their life in this angry, defensive place. But as my daughter was very specific, no psychological words, no major feeling words. We are never saying the word empathy. We are
Hmm.
just telling a story that embodies empathy.
Yep.
And but we don't have to label everything and force it down these kids' throats like medicine. Let's just teach them the concepts through story, right? And
Yeah.
I think, and so that's the point, is like let's be more creative. And I think for those of us where we're like, I'm not creative and I don't even know how. I think it's like honoring that natural teacher in you, which is like, I like to teach stuff. So
Yeah.
it's okay to have an agenda because the agenda is not going to be like, so now let me tell you about this concept. It's not lecture style. It's
Yeah.
like if all of a sudden you have this agenda of, I'm going to be able to teach Will about responsibility. And he keeps saying he wants a bunny, but guess what? If he wants a bunny, so instead of saying, hey, well, this is the thing. If we get the bunny, then you're going to have to be the one that cleans out the cage and you're going to have to da 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 da.
Yeah.
Instead, all of a sudden we've got Henry doing that for you.
Yeah.
And Will's into it. He's listening. He's engaged. His prefrontal cortex is online. He's absorbing all of these lessons. Like it's so much more effective.
But yeah, you feel more effective. And that's the other strategy I did from the podcast is so he almost blew up at me, but he didn't because I reminded him he wanted me to tell him another story, and he came up with an idea where Mr. Fluffernutter drank a potion and then grew big, and then then he talked. And I was like, that sounds like an amazing next story. We'll do that tomorrow. And he's like, well, I'm gonna forget. And I said, I'll write it down. So I wrote it down, and instead of doing it the next night, I used the podcast idea, which was her idea was like if you are trying to get your kids to do something that they don't want to do, like get into the car, to be like, oh, there's this really good story about these three squirrels. Like, let me tell you. So I didn't do that exactly, but I just was like, guys, because they needed to brush their teeth and get ready this morning. I'm like, oh, I gotta tell you about Mr. Fluffernutter. So I told volume two about during teeth, and it was really smooth. Claire was already dressed, so we just did teeth together. And then I was like, okay, we got to hear the second part of the story. Come into Will's room, and got him dressed, and I felt pretty. I felt like a badass, and it
Yes,
was
like a total
fun.
badass. Right. I mean, you know what else she was talking about that I realized was playful? Like, I remember years ago, I mean, years ago, like Alec was a baby, and y'all, he's 26 now. And I would take him to Gymboree. So he's probably now, you know, 18 months or 2 years old. And he goes through that phase where they don't want to be buckled in their car seat or they don't want to go or whatever. And they don't want to go. And then you put them in the car seat and it's like a fight and they won't let you buckle them. And you're getting like a, foot in the face and they're like kicking you and you're like, ow. So no fun. So I remember Gymboree, like it was a goofy little song and and I, whatever the tune was. And next thing you know, I adopted it to every time we were going to get in the car and I would pick them up. I would just sing this goofy little song. We're going for a ride. We're going for a ride. And I would like put him in the seat right at that moment. And I would say, so sit right back. And I'd make eye contact and then I do the top buckle and buckle up. And then it had the bottom buckle had one and then two. We're going for a ride.
Oh,
Every single time. I can't even tell you how long. And then when Avery was that age, Alec would sing along. It was like all of a sudden it wasn't a power struggle anymore. And it was like, I didn't really have to rack my brain. It was just like, what can I put to work to a little bit of music? Oh, I'll just use that annoying Gymboree tune, and so it's like, yeah, we're wanting to teach them things. We do have an agenda. We want to get them in the freaking car without having a foot in my face,
mm-hmm.
kicking me.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's a creative way of getting through all these little moments that can be stressful and exhaust the shit out of you.
Yes. Right. And I mean, yeah, that's cool. And I mean, it sounds like it was kind of like intuitive for you, and it was not. None of this has been particularly intuitive for me. Maybe there's aspects of it that I'm not
I
thinking of,
don't think
but
it's that. I think what's intuitive for me is I think I'm a problem solver in the sense of, I mean, look, the more I learn about attachment and all my stuff, um, you know, I had crazy self-reliance because I had to,
yeah.
so growing up, it was if there was a problem or if something was stressful, like there was no one helping me. I had to and if I actually asked for help, I was going to experience a lot of gaslighting or I was going to feel embarrassed or ashamed or feel like a pain in the ass. So
Hmm.
I had to develop that self-reliance from such a young age. So I think more than anything, it was me just being like, yeah, this sucks. I can't be fighting with a kid, every time I need to go get in the car. And so I think it was probably self-preservation more than anything else.
Yeah. And just like trying different things until one worked.
Yeah, like just throwing a ton of spaghetti at the wall. Like
Yeah.
this sucks, and I can't be fighting with him. This is annoying and awful. So nobody else is gonna figure it out for me. Like I got to figure it out. And then when I started, reading books and there was no podcast way back then, or listening or learning any way I could. I mean, I think that's why I had such a thirst and a hunger for it, was because no one's coming to save me. And now there's people and they put this information out and I can like learn and see what. So I tried lots of different things.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that's what I think pack leadership is. Oh, I can figure things out. And also, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there's other people who have done it. So I'm going to find the people that I agree with,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm going to be well sourced, and then and I may not agree with everything, and I'll just pick and choose. And then I'm going to grab this tune from Gymboree, and then I'm going to come up with this story idea where I totally get to have an agenda for once and teach through story, right? Like, and I'm a
Yeah.
born teacher, so of course I want to teach through story. And look at me, I'm such a badass. I'm being so playful, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think that is pack leadership, is also like, yeah, I can figure this out and I don't have to do this all by myself. And I kind of feel like a badass doing it.
Yeah, it's like fun. It's fun to, I mean, I think that's what my hope people will take from this conversation and these different conversations is like, the more that I've explored creativity through dance, which has really been like a 4 year thing because I started beginner tap because I never tap danced before for 3 years. But then this past year, like I've really dove into contemporary dance and it's been just everything. Like I feel like something is happening in my brain that is just, I mean, clearly it's lighting me up, but then there's all these other little trails I can go down, like re-engaging with story and reading has been a big thing
Can
for
I just
me.
pause for a second in terms of the creativity? Because you know what helped me so
Yeah.
much with like understanding it more from even the way you were explaining it and how impactful it's been for you with the dance is like, as a non-dancer, when you started talking about dance, I like all I could imagine was like solid gold. Like
You
like,
said
or
like a
like,
drill team.
yes, like I was like, oh, so people in adulthood who reintroduce themselves to dance, it's because they were like, like the kind of people that were on like the like fame, like at the, like
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
so it's like, so then when you showed us that video that was like not perfect and it involved like some weird folding chair and you were just having fun and it was
I
like,
totally messed up. Yeah.
yeah,
I
and
totally
it
forgot what
was
I was
like,
doing. Yeah.
yeah, and it wasn't like, it wasn't like fame. It was just like fun and playful. And it wasn't like, oh, and now she's going to go and be a professional dancer on TV. It's like, no, she's just going to go to this dance class and really enjoy herself. Like there was something about like seeing that video that I think would open it up for more people to realize like this doesn't mean you need to go if you re-explore something like dance or ice skating or something that you loved as a kid. It doesn't mean that now you need to go and like be a professional dancer or
Mm-hmm.
be a professional ice skater. Like you can
Yeah.
just like take an adult dance class and mess up and have a good time.
Yeah. And just play and have fun. Yeah. I mean, because for me, because well, the first 3 years I did it, I did tap, which was totally new to me. And I don't think, well, maybe I shared a video of that at the
I
retreat, but
think so. Yeah, I think so.
yeah, that was my third year. And at that year, I had learned to like have fun with tap. The first two, I was like, this is so awkward. Like adults are on stage doing these like tap dances, and it's mostly a child recital. Like there's like one or two adult classes. So it's just like this is uncomfortable. But it's so fun. And there's a performance aspect that is fun to me. Like I do like to perform and kind of show off, and I think I'm owning that in a non-performative, not provy way, but just like, hey, look what, and that's
Yes, that's what it felt like. And it felt like it was almost like you were inviting us to share in your joy.
yes,
And
yeah,
wasn't that tap recital wasn't there like a much older lady?
yeah, Jeannie, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We danced to Crazy Train, and she did the air guitar for like a full 8 count. Yeah, she loves it. She embodies like she just enjoys it, right? She's not proving anything. She'll say
Oh,
like,
I
I'm
felt the
not,
joy.
yeah, she'll say like, I'm not that good, but I love it, and she's just living her best life on stage, and it's fun to be with her, right? And one of the other that year, actually, one of the other dancers, she also loves it. And I was asking her, I was like, do you get nervous? Because I get so nervous because I mean, yes, you're on stage, and so of course it makes sense to get nervous, but I was just had this like performative anxiety of like perfectionism, right? That was always what kept me from loving. I loved dance as a kid. I loved it always, but there was always this stiffness, this perfectionism, this how do I look to other people
Hmm.
that did take the joy away from it. And that part of me on that particular third year of recital that I showed you all, actually, I showed you the dress rehearsal, but I was able to, that part relaxed, and it was actually by chance because we were supposed to go fifth and we went fourth. And so I didn't have the buildup of the song before to like get nervous. It was just like, you're on. And I was like, okay, we're on. And I didn't have time to get nervous. So I've never had more fun on stage with that dance and that recital. And I actually did mess up, but who cares?
Yeah, it was palpable. It was so much fun. And it was so much fun to watch, you know? And I think, you know, for all the scientists listening or the left brain people who are like, yeah, this all sounds good, but it's kind of a little too, I don't know, fluffy or esoteric or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
What I'll say is there's there is science. Don't ask me to quote what the studies are. Y'all are the people that are going to go do that. But there is science that the part of your brain that gets lit up when you're anxious, right? It cannot coexist with the part of your brain that's lit up when you're in creativity
Mm-hmm.
and in play and in playfulness.
Yep.
So, so like where creativity, anxiety, when you start to like, it's like if all of a sudden you were on the stage, you had like had another song and you could have allowed yourself to like think of all the what ifs and all the things you're scared of and all the things that might go wrong, right? And you had a whole other song to allow that to kind of build and brew. Um, as soon as you get out on that stage, what you experience is you start to go into the fun and the joy and the playfulness and the creativity.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that anxiety dissipates, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the thing that they realize is that, anxiety will cut down, it will cancel out creativity, right? So if you're feeling anxious, you're not going to be like, oh, I think I'll come up with some new dance moves. You're like, oh my God, this is going to go terrible. Who was I to, how can I come up with new dance? I'm going to be on the stage. People are going to be watching. What if I fall? These shoes feel a little slippery, right?
Mm-hmm.
The anxiety will shut down any new ideas or any creativity. But you not having that extra song to even think about and just having to get out there and go, creativity also shuts down anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's all, it all sounds a little, I think, a little too out there, which is like, well, if you're a really anxious person, if you just get into creativity, it'll shut down your anxiety. But understanding this out of the moment when you're not feeling anxious and maybe even understanding, oh, no, this is brain science, right?
Yeah.
And so
Yep.
and having that plan, like this is so much of pack leadership, you guys, is planning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have a plan for when I'm in the moment and I have the little toddler that is squirming and kicking and punching and doesn't want to go in his car seat.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to think about this ahead of time. It's not, and my anxiety is going to be like, oh my gosh, why is everyone else's kid so easy? What's wrong with him? Why does he freak out over these little things? What if he's autistic? Like whatever, all
Yeah.
the different, right? All the different things.
Yeah.
And so out of the moment, it's like, wait a minute, I did a little. prep and I'm learning about this stage of development. Oh, he's at this stage of development where he realizes that he can kind of be more in control of what he wants to do in this moment. And he lives in the present. So I started reading all this child development. That was my pack leader showing up out of the moment, kind of
Mm-hmm.
trying to understand, is this about me or is there something wrong with him? Or maybe I should actually learn about how old he is right now and typical child development. And so we were planning out of the moment. And then I'm like, okay, this is totally normal. It's not that he's abnormal. This is what
Mm-hmm.
they do. Okay, so then I probably heard somebody say, like, if you make it playful or if you distract them, and then I'm at Gymboree and I'm watching him and I'm watching my fussy little guy. All of a sudden, he's engaged and he's happy and he's smiling. And I'm like, oh shit, I can use that. Right. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking about this out of the moment and planning. And then I spring it on him when I'm in the moment. But I've taken this mental prep time out of the moment. Right.
Yeah.
And so,
And engaging with, I'll just point this out, knowing
yeah,
this about you, like engaging with that material from a what you love, which is learning and listening, right? Like you were engaging with your own form of play at that time.
that's right. That's right.
Like,
These are the things that I want to be learning about right now.
yeah, like interpersonal neurobiology and that yeah, I think that just to go with this dance analogy, like when I started dance again, I was not doing improv and creating my own. I wasn't choreographing my own stuff, right? Like there was no improvisation. I was following the steps taught to me. But now the more I do with having other people teach me creative things and doing it exactly as they tell me to, now the more I can improv, dance and with like my morning story this morning. That was improv, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think of myself as, and it's interesting. And I know I told you all about this study on the retreat because I think it's fascinating. It was cited in the book Originals by Adam Grant, which is all about original thinking. And it's that study that looked at Nobel Prize winning scientists versus like regular scientists. And it showed their involvement in any creative endeavor had them much more likely to be in that Nobel Prize winning group, but especially these performing arts. So magician was really high. I think actor. I think dancer was high up on there too. But there's something about this like right brain creative play that makes us more innovative thinkers. And so if you think
Mm.
it's fluffy, no. Like it's the last thing. And it I left you a Voxer yesterday, right? Because I was like, oh, I'm going to tell you about what Will said when we were playing in the snow fort and how he's like, you know, I was digging this snow fort tunnel. I was like, this is kind of fun, isn't it, bud? And he goes, it's also really important. And I was like, you're right. It's so important to him, but also play is really important. He's right.
Yes.
So, 5-year-old wisdom.
I mean, yes, it's really important. It's like, yeah, we're building a tunnel. Like in that moment, he's like, yeah, building a tunnel is very important. Like this is necessary. It has to happen right now. Like his brain lives in that magical thinking. It's
Yeah.
so beautiful, but it's also like, yeah, we're not just playing. Like this isn't just a game, Mom. We're building a tunnel right now, and this matters.
Yeah, the
You
soldiers
know?
are going to be in that tunnel soon, and then the
Yeah.
rats are going to come. Like, there was a
Yes.
whole thing that happened after of these creepy rats.
So
Yeah.
awesome. This is really important. And it is. It's like,
Yeah.
this is really important. And I just
Yeah.
think that, I think this this whole pack leadership concept, which is really just leadership,
Hmm.
is how do we show up in our lives where, of course, we're respected. Of course, I mean, Lindsay shared a story recently. Lindsay, who works with me and is like my co-parent who helps run my business. And she's got a 16-year-old now. And she was like, we've got this thing because my middle one's going to be on a Boy Scouts retreat. The 16-year-old has social plan. He's 16 and he's actually for the first time kind of getting more social. So she's like loving it that he's like, because he's kind of a serious kid. And she's like, and her husband had plans both nights of the weekend. Well, she's still got a fifth grader. And she's like, do I hire a babysitter? Um, she's like, because it's weird. I mean, Ben puts he's her, her house is self-sufficient. Like she's like, do I hire a babysitter because he puts himself to bed? Ben puts it in like, do I hire someone just a bit? It doesn't feel right to leave him alone. He's only in fifth grade, even though I know he'll be fine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, her house is a well-oiled machine. So
Mm-hmm.
she's like, what's the right answer? And I said, and I think the 16-year-old was only going out one night. I said,
Mm-hmm.
I said, you could just ask him to invite the friends over to your place, um, and see what he thinks about that. So anyway, so she said, hey, what about inviting your friends over? I just don't want to leave Ben home alone. And she said, immediately, Jake said, well, it's not a big deal. I'm just going to take, we were going to go to Jack's Grill and I'll just take him with me. Wherever we go, I'll just take him with me. His 10-year-old brother.
Mm-hmm.
And Lindsay knows that sometimes, the 10-year-old could be like, he wants to impress the older kids or something. So she's like, and she's really happy that Jake's like letting loose a little bit and making some friends and going out. And so she's like, yeah, but I don't want, you know what? I don't want to put you in that position. And what if and Jake's like, then I'll handle it. It's fine. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And and she's like, are you sure? He was like, absolutely. It's not a big deal. Right. So like, why, and I've had people ask me a lot of times, like, how do you get your older kid to watch your younger kid or your older kid when they start driving to automatically drive their sibling everywhere? And I'm like, it's their pleasure. Like,
Mm-hmm.
why is it their pleasure? Why was it Jake's pleasure? Why did Jake step? And I said, it's like, because when the pack leadership is so strong, it makes everyone feel safe and everybody, it's like, this is the way we do things here. Nobody
Yeah.
has to overpower anyone. Nobody needs to act like an asshole. Nobody needs to guilt trip anyone. This is the way we do things here. And people just feel so safe. And then they learn by what we model. And then because we've been those pack leaders, when it's their turn or they have to be the fill-in pack leader sometimes, absolutely, this is just what needs to happen. And they just see it so clearly.
Well, yeah, and we as humans are actually wired to want to be cooperative and helpful, like all of us, right? And that's, years ago, the theory I was so into that I still have talked about on this podcast a lot is self-determination theory. And there's a lot of science to show that, like, intrinsically, we are wired to want to be helpful. We're wired to want to learn. We're wired to want to challenge ourselves. We're wired for all of these innate qualities. And so many of our systems take that away, right? But bringing that pack leadership back to your family unit is the best way to get people back in touch with, I want to be generous and
That's right.
I have that confidence and I want to, go out and play and I want the other people to have fun and play too. And it's a beautiful thing. And it, but it is really countercultural because most of the time we get pulled out of that, myself included, many of us, right? And just or controlling all the people or trying to get the people to do what we want when they always want, deep down they want to be cooperative.
They want to be cooperative. They want life to feel like a party. Like they want all of a sudden, like, like, oh, tensions are high. And then all of a sudden there's music on. I can't tell you. It's like such a simple thing when it's like those witching hours and it's just you're tired and they're tired and it's just like, and then all of a sudden we just put on music and it just changes the vibe. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's as simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's really like the opportunities are infinite, but yeah, music, dance, story. I think those are some of the ones that I've found the most helpful. But there's so many different ways to do this, to shift from, yeah, a culture that values doing and grades and external control and compliance to, but all of those, the way of play is that book, it's like the way of play actually gets all of those external things, not compliance, but people to show up generously. And yeah, and I don't think we talked about it last time, but I know Lindsay, speaking of Lindsay, is you have talked with her for years about this concept of like creating Cabo at home because she had wanted to, you know, everyone wants to go on a vacation and but what if we could actually have our life feel like a vacation? And I know that that's something that you've done with your life, right? Where you still go on vacation, but you really, really like, and I know you and Avery were talking about that recently, and like, I mean, it's so countercultural, right? It's just not,
Yeah, I love home. I mean, I literally feel like I go on vacation just so that I get to experience how much I love coming back home. And, and I'll go on, I mean, like I'll go to great places. I need to go, and I realize okay, I'm gonna go and I want to have an experience. But like, do I need to go on vacation to feel like, oh, I can finally relax? No, that's
yeah,
what I like. This is my sanctuary. This is my happy place. I'm so excited to get back here after I've been on vacation. Even if it was like Hawaii and it was fabulous, I
yeah,
still want to come back here. I still
yeah.
can't wait to get back here.
Well,
Yeah.
you had to come to the retreat to see Lake Michigan and meet me in person, so
No, and I mean, and it was so worth it, right? Like, I mean, and I loved it. Like, that's the thing. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love being somewhere so beautiful, and I love being in real life with other people, and I enjoyed being with all the people that I met. I think, but also like, yeah, I miss my bed, and it's that law of polarity, right? Like,
yeah,
sometimes we have
yeah.
to be away. I mean, if I just stay, and I've noticed this, especially now that I've just, entered into empty nesterhood. If I stay cozy in the cave, which I can tend to do sometimes, for too many days,
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, it happened last week. Crazy snow in Houston. We never get snow. I
Yeah,
got to kind of experience a tiny bit, of like having snow days. So we had 2 days, but this whole city is like locked down when there's snow because we don't have the infrastructure.
right.
And by the end of day two, like where I had just been like a shut in, and it was so cozy. I had my fireplaces, I had my dogs, I had like all the things. But I was like kind of feeling like depressed.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't appreciating. I was like, I felt isolated. I felt depressed. I felt like this is too much solitude. I started going to a dark place. So I'm like, yeah, if you just stay cozy in the cave, that's all of a sudden the cave doesn't feel so cozy.
Right, right. Well, it reminds like that those concepts of for most people, creativity and play can be vulnerable too. We kind of touched on that, but like, connection, creativity, all the back to the 8 C's of IFS and self energy. It's like there's a reason and going back to self-determination theory, what we're wired for, we actually are wired, it's intrinsically rewarding to do things that challenge us, right? And so I think that's why people do, extreme things or mildly extreme things. I'm thinking of like climbing mountains and like marathons and things like that, but because it feels so good to accomplish that thing, but also to challenge yourself in that way. And yeah, and we can get too much of the law of polarity, as you often say, too cozy in the cave, and it can make us feel like I'm yearning for something else. And yeah, yeah. And I
It's
think,
like, and for anybody that kind of wants that, it's like you're not gonna appreciate the warm fire if you don't like go out into the cold and actually get cold enough to then come in and experience, oh, it feels so good to warm my bones. If
right.
you just stay by the fire, like you're like you're not even noticing that the fire's keeping you warm because you're not allowing your body to get cold enough where you experience sort of that opposite,
Yeah.
that opposite experience. And so it intensifies, it just makes for, I think, a more alive life where
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, when Alec ran that, my oldest son just ran his first half marathon, and it was on a freezing cold day in Houston.
Hmm.
And he said he goes, they were supposed to start the race and they didn't start for like till 45 minutes later. And he was like, it was so cold. I was so cold. It was unbelievable. And then after the race, and he's in the warm car, and he's like, it feels so good in here. And he was experiencing like it. He felt so proud of himself that he accomplished this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was like going through those extremes, I think just intensifies the experience.
Yeah, totally. Makes me think of my friend and I used to sit in her hot tub in like middle school and then go jump in the lake like in like freezing cold winter. Like, I mean, it wasn't frozen, right? Because there was water, but and then we jump back in the hot tub and
So good for you.
yeah, yeah, we were doing the cold plunge before it was
Yeah,
cool
that's
back
so
in
cool.
Michigan Lake. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hope what people take from this, I mean, they can take what they want to take because people learn through story, right? But I guess the final thing I want to touch on maybe today is this idea. I mentioned sort of like you as a pack leader in Mastermind, creating the Mastermind community and how beneficial that's been to all of us. And that's just you showing up, doing what you love doing and what interests you, and what a gift that can be. Because I think that's where it comes to like the self-ish leadership, right? Like it's not selfish, it's actually generous to do what lights us up because it makes us show up better and differently. And that's what I found. Like the more I explore creativity and sometimes in my business do stuff related to creativity more and more, like even if it's just this podcast conversation, like I will be more lit up for my afternoon clients. Like they don't necessarily
Mhm.
know that, right? Because they don't know that I just did this, but and I find I bring more creativity to those sessions. Like I do more innovative things within session. And I think that I just want to kind of counter this narrative um, that doing things that bring us joy is frivolous or selfish or doesn't matter because I think it deeply matters now more than ever. And like I said, whether that's someone wanting to explore how could I make more of a business doing what I love, because as I said last time, like we live in a world where we need money to survive. So to me, I'm kind of a practical person. I'm like, why wouldn't I want to do that? Like, why wouldn't I want to make money doing what I love so I can do less of the things that I'm kind of like, it's fine, right? And so my hope is that that gives people hope because I know that that's something I've been shifting. Like, not only do I feel more lit up with the work that I'm doing with one-on-one work, but I'm gradually making more money doing like these retreats or these in-person meetups. And maybe one day I make a little money with my podcast, not much, but like I get so much out of it, And so my hope is that gives people hope that they could dip their toe into what that could look like for them.
Yeah. I mean, you know, doing a job that if we can bring more of our zone of genius into whatever our job is,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, if you are actually creating a job and running your own business and, taking all the risks that come with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and you truly get to do things your way. I mean, that's what I always say to myself is like, well, I get to figure this out. I can do it however I want to, you
Yeah.
know? And that is how I happen upon, tools like Voxer, or lately I've been using AI for doing some of those Jungian dream analysis,
Mm-hmm.
which has been so cool. Just like I'm willing to be creative and play around with like, oh, this sounds like kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
Um, right? Because it's my business, so I can do whatever I want. And I think that for anyone though, whether you're running your own business or whether you're working at a job that, isn't your passion and you don't love all the parts of it, when you start to just, I mean, a lot of this is self-awareness. When you start to get back in touch with, well, how do I actually want to play? Like what does feel like freedom in my body? What do I do where I do lose track of time?
Yeah.
Right? Talking to a friend. Well, talking to a friend about what? Was it when a friend comes to you and they're like, oh my God, I have the hardest day, or I really don't know what to do in this situation? Is it advising a friend? So like there's so much information. And so
Mhm.
when you start to tap into, it's like we had a lawyer in the oil and gas industry speak up on our in one on one of our threads, one of our conversations in our mastermind, and that Sean's in. And she's like, I just didn't really like that big magic book. Like, it just didn't really appeal to me. And she's a lawyer. She's got a very high position with a big oil and gas. She's like a major leader in this company and mentor. And she's like, yeah, it didn't really appeal to me. But then we broke down all the ways. Like, she's not she went to law school and became a lawyer. She's not drafting and coming up, right, going over contracts. Like she shows up in leadership and she problem solves and people come to her and she mentors. She's using so much creativity day in and day out in her life. And she just didn't see it as that, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes. Yeah, I loved, yeah, it's funny. I was kind of thinking of her too. Like as we think about different ways to use this, but yeah, I love we have to be more creative of how we think about creativity.
That right.
Hmm.
That's right. I know. I feel like we could talk about this all day.
I
I
know.
do.
I know. Well, part two of however many is coming to a close, but yeah, I hope that people will at least just be like, I mean, if they made it this far, we are interesting enough to finish the conversation. So maybe they'll take a little, you know, toe dip into this. And I think it's just as always for me, like creativity, exploring zone of genius is a process. And I'm always like unlocking new levels of like, oh, this is the thing that I'm doing here, right? Even with this podcast, like I think there's even more to explore about why do I really like these interview episodes so much. And yeah, I think I know some of it, but like really digging to it and it's ever evolving. But I mean, as someone who I didn't listen to a lot of music until recently, like literally recent years, like there's just it's interesting. Like we can just close off these funnels of connection to creativity and not even consciously. And I think that it's a huge loss. So
I agree. I agree. Me too. I think the learning part of my brain has been so engaged and online. And now I also have started to listen to music again a little bit. I still,
yeah,
I
same. I don't
still,
a ton either.
yeah, a little bit, but like even just like in the shower,
Hmm.
and like, I'm like, oh, this is fun to listen to music in the shower. Like the rest of my
Yeah,
family all listens to music in the shower.
yeah,
And now I'm like, it is fun to listen to music in the shower, you know?
yeah.
And so, yeah, I'm also kind of playing around with that too.
Well, yeah, you and I are similar in that we love podcasts and like learning, and so that can be our play too. But yeah, I used to do podcasts in the shower. I'm like, I can't even stop for 5 minutes. I don't take long
Yeah,
showers.
I know.
Like,
I know.
but
I know.
yeah, and that's why I like dance because I'm moving as I listen. But yeah, it's anyway. Yeah. So, well, thank you for being here again, and yeah, as always, we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for listening today, guys. I hope you picked up some tips, tools, maybe some baby steps for creating more balance and boundaries in your life. And I just wanted to let you know, if you want to continue moving the needle forward in creating this for yourself, having a happier household, I want you to go to my website and check out mastermindparenting.com, We have 3 beginning programs, and if you need some accountability and more support, then please look for the one that would be a good fit for you. And as always, we're on all the social channels under Mastermind Parenting. On Instagram, it's mastermind_parenting. And, periodically I do pop up on different Instagram lives, Facebook lives, where I give you teaching and coaching, and I love engaging with you live to help your strong-willed kids so that they can feel better, because when they feel better, they do better. And I love getting to know you guys. So thanks for listening. If you like this podcast, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Super, super appreciative.